these are students that are running point. And so they're, putting together a run of shows, and they're getting their pre-production meeting, and they're coordinating cameras and getting them in, set up and sent out to the field. I'm sitting there watching this going, this is incredible.
We are surrounded by content. Content shapes who we follow, how we lead, what we buy, and even what we believe. Welcome to the Content Generation Podcast, a Class Intercom production where we focus on the stories that come to life in schools all over the world. We highlight the students, educators, and communities who share the content that shapes our future.
Well, welcome back to the Content Generation Podcast. This has been a really exciting few weeks as we're really well back into 2025, which is crazy to say, but things are happening. We're back in schools. Jill, what have you been up to?
Oh man, I feel like I've been all over the place, and just really trying to get out there and visit our schools and talk to people, and have a pretty full travel docket coming up too.
As you say, all over the place. I'm reminded that we have a webinar coming up called Chaos to Clarity, and we're going to be talking about how to find clarity in your communications for your school district. So I think that's a really fun, shameless plug right there. I think it's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, that'll be a great one. We get almost every day a phone call, people talking about the Wild West of their social media accounts. And so a lot of how-tos, a lot of practical tips and resources on how to rein those in and really unify your storytelling.
You mentioned Wild West. We are headed west for CalSPRO. We are headed south to Texas. We are headed east to North Carolina, Indiana. Mm-hmm. We're dotting the country in a lot of different school communications conferences. A lot of things are happening. I'm excited to get to connect with more folks around the country.
Yeah, definitely. We're so blessed to be able to travel and get to these places. And whether it's a tech conference, school public relations, education conferences, whatever it might be, it's just fun to be out there and in person. Zoom's great, podcasts are great, webinars are great, but there's nothing like that face-to-face interaction with the people that we serve.
Well, one of those conversations that I've had face-to-face was with my new friend, Tony Linder. We've actually have a lot of background in common, and he's just a great person. I was really grateful for some friends connecting us and multiple times at the same time. And they were like, you've got to have some conversation with Tony. Tony directs a lot of different things at a company called Hudl. So your school uses it, my school uses it, every school uses Hudl in one way or another. But in the athletic space, Hudl is the name at this point. And we're really close to Hudl's headquarters. In fact, our office is one of Hudl's former offices. So Hudl moved out of our office to move into their building down the street. And Jill, it was a fantastic conversation with Tony.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear that conversation along with everyone else. But Hudl is just one of those names that everybody knows now. If you've got a kid in sports, if you've been around a school, Hudl is there and just doing really game-changing work. Really changed a lot of lives. Now, you have to remember, I was a basketball coach back in the 80s and 90s. Actually, sorry, 90s and 2000s. Dating myself too much. And, I remember driving and exchanging videotapes at gas stations, to be able to get some of those scouting reports. And Hudl's really changed the game for that, as well as recruiting. And so it's nice to be able to work with them.
Well, Tony started off talking a little bit about that. Their history was that of replacing those VHS driving. But then they moved into so many other things, right? The way that you coach, some of the methodology for coaching has really been affected by Hudl's influence. And really, they've brought so many pieces of technology from what we saw in the pros into an approachable level for high school and even younger. But one of the new initiatives that Tony's helping lead is their initiative in live streaming, which I think is also really exciting. And really exciting because we pull up adjacent to a lot of what Hudl's doing there, because we need to get people to those events. And that's one of the ways that we've intersected a lot with Hudl schools and with the Hudl technology. And I'm really excited for all of you to listen to Tony, hear his passion for sports and the work they're doing at Hudl. Welcome back to the Content Gen podcast. I am here with a new friend of mine and an expert in all things athletics, communication, and we've got a bunch of personal connections as well that have been fun. But Tony, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ben. Expert's a strong word. I think we're all just trying to figure it out, but that's what makes life fun, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Tony, I've gotten to know your organization a little bit, but you work at a now large company called Hudl.
Yeah.
And what do you do for Hudl?
Yeah, currently the market director overseeing our streaming business. So market director is a little bit of a newer role for us here, but effectively helping ensure that our customers have a great experience with our streaming products and services, and that our business can capitalize on that growth, so we can continue to build better products and services for those customers.
Yeah, and Hudl is in approximately 99% of schools, correct?
Yeah, if you for across the high schools in the U.S., every football team is going to know it and use Hudl for the most part.
So, same organization really started with this idea of helping student athletes, and been to the office where it says dominate, and sort of like have all of these things that you're helping, sports teams to be more competitive. But there's been from the outside a subtle shift, but from the inside, no subtle shift in the way that Hudl is approaching schools. Can you tell us a little bit about like what that looks like?
Yeah. Huddle's been around going on 20 years now. So when we, spotted an opportunity and, saw the problem that coaches were having with film exchange, and then parlayed that into all the products and services that we have today, it's not really any different than what we've discovered over the last 3 years. Really, probably 5 years, but really 3 years, heavily investing in what we're calling the Hudl fan experience. And so, what does that mean? It's like traditionally, Hudl has worked with teams and coaches, and really that nucleus was the team, the coaches and the athletes, and helping them with their performance tools, so getting better, watching themselves on video, stats, recruiting, highlights, etc. But as we continue to grow across the school, and so go from football to basketball to volleyball, right now all of a sudden there's this kind of new, it's not a new persona, but it's a new set of tools and opportunities, and that's the athletic department. So obviously the athletic director heads that up, and there's a bunch of other personas in there. And so what we started to realize is our performance suite, our team coaching tools, have those highlights, those schedules, those scores, those rosters. And then we brought live streaming into the fold. That's all content that fans want. Fans want to watch the game when they can't be there. Fans want to know what the score is when they can't be there. They want to go figure out who this number 11 is that just went off for 30 points in their varsity basketball game. That's all stuff that these fans want. And so what we realized is we could do a better job of consolidating that and delivering that experience to fans. So that's kind of been our newest endeavor, is we'll call the Hudl Fan Suite. Connecting our coaches, our teams, our athletes within the athletic department with their broader community. And that's led you and I to some pretty fun conversations around the ancillary roles that surround that. So I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited to dive into more of those areas of communication. But first, Tony, how did you get into this role with Hudl? Really, what led to this?
Luck, but luck is preparation meets opportunity, right? So bad luck is problem meets lack of preparation, right? So the opposite side is I went to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We're all fond of our Cornhuskers here, right down the road. I didn't have a strong conviction for necessarily what I wanted to be right going into college, but I did know I wanted to be something around technology. I actually started out as a computer science major and thought I was going to be programming the next great software, right? Or video games at the time was probably going through my head. I wanted to be the FIFA engineer or something. Now, quickly into my collegiate career, I realized that I wasn't as passionate about coding as I thought, but I was passionate about the business side. So I pivoted, became I was a finance major. And anyways, once I graduated, I found myself in a customer facing role, sales, right? So working with customers to implement our products and services another company here in town prior to Hudl, and then joined Hudl in 2014 as a sales rep as well. But I had the opportunity to kind of grow new markets on the front lines, right? Kind of learn how we're going to approach, the soccer market. That was kind of a newer market for us at the time, and I was given the opportunity to help lead the charge there. So I went from sales to sales management, and did that for a couple years. And that gives you kind of a higher level purview, right, on how to do things like forecasting and market opportunities and SWOT analysis and all the things they teach you in college that you say, yeah, I'll never use that. And then you end up using it and you're like, oh, you got to dig up your old notes, right? So that gave me the opportunity to then move into the product realm. And so I had the opportunity for a few years to work with a product team, which is a whole new layer to the company, right? So now you're translating business and user requirements to a product squad and devs and designers who are building this brand new suite of products or a feature within a product, and it's really, really cool to see some of that stuff come to life. And from there, that's parlayed me back into a more business focused role and in this market director. So that's the journey. Obviously, there's a lot of doors that opened along the way, and I think a lot of that, we can get through all the soft skills that get you there, but the hard work and pays off in the long run.
So it's given you a really unique lens. I think of 11, years at Hudl, and that's given you a lens for how schools, in particular, their athletic departments, are picking up on technology, but also now a little bit what they have to communicate around that, and how do they collect all of the video content and adopt Hudl's systems and really be competitive in all that landscape. You have a unique window into all of that. What's it taught you about the way athletic departments really approach that?
I love that question because there's 100 different ways we can answer that. I think the short answer is this isn't. It's very similar to how Hudl started in the coaching space and the performance space, and it's also not anything necessarily new because collegiate programs across the country are doing this already. So they know that they have content available. They know that they are able to market it. They know that the athletic department is the front porch for their institution, for their college or their university. In high schools, similar to how that was happening at the performance analysis level, collegiate programs, NFL, NBA, WNBA, they were all using these high power performance tools 20 years ago, and Hudl helped bring those down to a level where high schools and clubs could use them, understand them, and afford them. That's similar to what we're seeing on the fan side as well. On the community engagement side, is there are at the collegiate level SIDs and full marketing departments, and getting even crazier, right, with capologists and GMs as we see in the Power 5 or the Power 4 conferences. But high schools are starting to realize that as well, where they have the opportunity to showcase their school in a different light and maybe stand out from their peers within the community, and not necessarily like they're competing as much on that front, but it's more so to tell great stories about their athletes, about their teams, and that athlete that's breaking scoring records or gets a scholarship. The really, really cool thing about that is it's not just athletes getting scholarships anymore. We're starting to see these athletic adjacent roles get scholarships by using Hudl products. So student sports broadcasters, that's been one of the coolest things we've seen over the last 3 years, is these students that are putting a headset on and announcing a game. And is it as good as Gus Johnson might do? Not necessarily right out of the gate, but they're learning, right? And that's opening up not only opportunities for them at the next level, but it's kind of showing them what's possible when they get involved with the community. So yes, I have seen a lot of inside the athletic department, and now how that's kind of evolved from pure performance and coaching to kind of how do you connect the athletic department with the rest of the school, maybe the academic side of the school. And so now we're really honing in on how we can help connect those dots between the athletics and the academics, and really make the athletic program look good, and open up career opportunities for students that may not otherwise be participating in athletics.
Love that. You started with a phrase that I've heard you say before, and I think it's a Hudl phrase to some degree, which is athletics is the front porch to that school.
I don't know if that's a huddle phrase. I'm pretty sure I heard that on a podcast a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago. So
Well, I like that concept and that visual of how athletics plays a key role in the communication, the operation of the school is sort of that welcoming spot. How do you see that play out from Huddle's perspective? What do you see? Now that you've gotten more into live streaming, how has that been amplified?
yeah, live streaming is just the start. So we have, for those that may be unfamiliar with Hudl, we have an automated camera that has kind of a live look into the gym, has auto tracking in it. It's an incredible problem solver for a lot of athletic departments, where it can follow the ball and they can just push a button and it goes. And that works great for a lot of live streams, maybe a sub varsity event that's not necessarily going to be run through a play by play or production software. But that next level is where athletic departments are starting to see the opportunity to do more. And the problem is, athletic directors don't have room on their plate to take on more. But what they're realizing, and what we're trying to help them with the materials on, and even just the education, or even more so the awareness side, is, hey, you don't have to do this yourself. You have a lot of very well equipped and ready to take action students that can be plugging in here and helping. And when you see this done really, really well, and I'll stick with the live streaming side before we get to some of the broader stuff, but when you see this done really, really well, I was at a high school in Omaha during the football season, and there was not even necessarily there was staff and faculty members there, but they're not like necessarily quarterbacking or coordinating this thing. These are students that are running point, and so they're putting together a run of shows, and they're getting their pre-production meeting, and they're coordinating cameras and getting them in, set up and sent out to the field. And here's where you're going to sit, and here's the shots I want. And I'm sitting there watching this, going, this is incredible. This is a team of 6 to 8 students run by one senior who's learned this over the last couple of years, and it's really, really cool when you start to see that. And so what does that do for the athletic department? Well, it makes them look really good when the fans or alumni who live out of state, or fans who can't travel to the event, or I talked to a gentleman in a nursing home the other day who loves the opportunity to watch his grandson play football, and now basketball season, and that's just amplified when you have play by play and good graphics, and you just better storytelling opportunities like what we're used to seeing at the most elite level. So that's been really cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love that vision, and being able to see that played out, right? It means more opportunities for great content, right? It means opportunities for students. I think one of the things you're speaking about, obviously, we've been linked with a long time, which is, hey, like, if we're going to make investments, they should be investments in education too, right? And so those sorts of investments give students really great opportunities, but it also showcases what the learning that's happening, and the learning that's even happening on the field.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no doubt that everything that goes into these productions and these broadcasts or this content generation is part of our future. I mean, it's not getting any less digital, right? And so the skills that you learn, the traits that you garner through learning how to garner a sponsorship and insert into a graphic into a halftime show, that can pay dividends well down the road, especially into a collegiate or professional career.
Yeah, one of the things I love about where Hudl's starting to help as well. You mentioned things like sponsorships, right? It's starting to help those individual students get an awareness for the business side of the school too, right? Like they get to start to see, hey, how does this start to pay for itself? And a lot of our clients are finding ways to pay for things because there's sponsorships. There's those opportunities available.
Yeah, funding is always going to be an issue, right? Budgetary concerns, and everybody is just trying to give their athletes and their teams the best chance to compete. And like it or not, that means having money, right? I mean, we just saw that on Monday at the CFP championship. Money helps.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as we think about Tony, your role and what you're helping advise schools and specifically the athletic departments on, how are you preparing them for this sort of next wave of communication, of sponsorships, of all of the things that are going into that role of an athletic director, and then of course the comms to support that. Like, what are you helping them with now?
Yeah, it starts with the general awareness. Like I kind of alluded to earlier, is there's still a little bit of a lack of understanding of how do I do this. Like there's the best schools in the country. They know this. They have the resources. They've been figuring this out. I want you to picture the person in the middle of the state of Nebraska who is who's the volleyball coach and the athletic director and trying to teach a class all at the same time and thinking, how am I ever going to connect with my community? So from a product standpoint, we're obviously trying to help them automate a lot of that stuff. We have an internal phrase here that we call like moving the starting line. So how can we help them do more with less? Everyone's heard that before. But then there's the awareness side is again getting students involved. And then their next question is, okay, great. How do I do that? Well, we have a great partnership with a company that you are aware of that's local to Nebraska as well. Strive Education, people have maybe seen or may know about. And so we can start to help connect them with our key partners who are really experts in the space, can help advise them on things like the best hardware to use for our microphones and mixers and stuff like that. And so the first part really starts with how much can we automate to take things off their plate, and we can do a lot of that from a product perspective because nobody wants to spend hours just doing a pre-production, right? They want to be able to just click a button and get going. And then it's awareness around, okay, what are the things that I could be doing? How does it help my program grow? And then, okay, great. How do I execute on this? And that's where we can connect them with some of our resources and our partners to help them figure out what those next steps are.
Cool, cool. So yeah, as you start to think about scaling that out, it sounds like your advice is, hey, like live streams really matter. Having students executing those live streams, having students a part of the whole program, starts to really benefit your school. Um, what's been your advice from a communications perspective? Like, what are you starting to tell them that they need to be highlighting? How do they tell the authentic stories that are related to sports?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's one word I would underline there is authentic, right? We can all tell stories, but we want them to be authentic. And so when you are able to not only source the content outside of the broadcast or not only within the broadcast and the streams and tell stories, and you can imagine a student saying, hey, that's my friend who just scored that bucket. She's great, or he just passed his math test. I don't know what high schools talk about anymore, but they that's authentic, right? That's good. But then there's also the capturing of photos and sharing out game day posts and reminding everybody to show up at the gym because it's pink, everybody wear their pink shirts tonight and we're going to fill up the gym. And like, that's authentic. And even how you caption that post and how you portray those athletes. And you and I have talked about that as well. So I think it's just being, not trying to overdo it, but knowing that if you can, put that authentic content out there, that fans are going to connect with that more. And obviously it's going to get them excited for not only to show up to the game or to tune into the game, but to follow the program and be invested in the success of the program. Which is what these athletes do it for, right? They want to be celebrated.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's so interesting. Like, obviously, being student centric in the things that you're doing, you're taking a lot of things that would have been out of reach, right? Like that are happening at Power Four, conferences, and scaling that down. Also, those Power Fours have great communications teams. They have an athletic director, but then they also have all of the other supporting staff. University a few blocks from here, they've got hundreds in their athletic department. So it's really easy to sort of see that model and get intimidated by it. But I think actually, I think I misinterpreted this when I first saw Hudl, partly because their tagline was, your tagline over there was dominate. And I was like, it seemed intimidating to me, right? But really what you're doing is you're actually taking a lot of those tools and making them approachable for a lot of schools.
It's a good way to look at it. Yeah. You did ask my advice earlier on like for an athletic department, and I kind of skipped over that. So I'll just kind of maybe end it on this is, when it does look big and intimidating, and like you said, bringing it down to my level, whether I'm a small school in the middle of nowhere, I'm a big school in a huge metro that competes for state championships each year. Just look around you, who can help you out, because there's a lot of people that are willing to help, and you may be creating and opening up a career path or creating an opportunity for somebody who otherwise may not get it. And that includes obviously students, and those that are within the school system, that can really, really help shift some of that burden off the central staff members, but also open up their eyes to future career opportunities. So,
Tony, I love the way that you're creating opportunities for students. I love the way that you're helping schools. And because of Hudl's reach, you're helping all schools. And that's a huge passion of mine, and love getting to see the way that you're doing that. Any closing advice for schools, for school communicators?
put some of this power in the hands of your students. I think you're going to be really, really surprised at what they can create. As the digital age continues to expand at an exponential rate, and the exponential amount of content is out there in the world, like there are great opportunities for our youth to bear hug it, put it into succinct content, share it out on social media, and get the community excited to tune in and show up in the next game. Like I said, I think if you give them the opportunity, I think they're going to surprise you. So it's on educators to help create those and give them those opportunities.
Love it. Hey, Tony, thanks for joining the podcast. It's been
Thank
great
you,
to
Ben.
have you here.
This is great. I appreciate it.